Welcome to Mythos AI, your source for Cliff's Notes on complex subjects. Join Anna and Phil for yet another engaging conversation.
All right, everybody, get ready, because today we're taking a deep dive into the world of AI.
Artificial intelligence.
That's right, AI.
With a name you might not know, but definitely should. Geoffrey Hinton.
The godfather of AI.
Exactly, the godfather of AI.
You guys gave us a really interesting podcast episode transcript about him.
From a series called Who's Who in AI.
Yeah, and that's what we're diving into today.
It's really fascinating stuff.
Yeah, so Hinton's story, let me tell you, this is not your average Joe.
No, not at all. I mean, just imagine his great-great-grandfather invented Boolean algebra.
Which, remind me.
It's basically the foundation of how computers think, how they process information.
Wow, okay, so we're talking like way back in the family tree, already laying the groundwork for this.
It's like he was destined to shake things up in the world of AI, right?
It's in the genes.
And get this, his great-grandfather, a renowned surgeon and a philosopher.
Get out, no way.
Yeah.
Surgeon and a philosopher.
Yeah, talk about an overachieving family, right?
I mean, come on.
Makes you wonder if there was something special in their water, you know?
Right. So with a family like that, you'd think, okay, he went straight into computer science, right?
Well, that's where it gets interesting. He actually studied experimental psychology at Cambridge.
Really? Okay, so not the usual path for like an AI legend. So how do you go from studying the human mind to like shaping artificial intelligence?
That's actually a really important point, and it gets to the core of Hinton's work. See, he wasn't just interested in building machines. He wanted to understand how we learn, how we think, how we process information. That psychology background, it really fueled his obsession with neural networks, this whole idea of teaching computers to learn like our brains do.
Okay, so instead of just programming computers with specific instructions, it's more like trying to get them to think more like humans do.
Exactly.
Okay, that sounds like something straight out of, like, science fiction. Yeah.
It totally did back in the 70s and 80s when Hinton was starting out. People thought it was impossible, just a pipe dream.
Yeah, I bet.
Back then, computers just weren't powerful enough to handle the complexities of neural networks.
But Hinton, he didn't give up, did he? He seems like kind of a dog with a bone when he gets an idea in his head.
No, not a chance. He was convinced neural networks were the key, and he had this hunch that computers would eventually catch up.
And guess what?
And he was right.
He was right.
This is where his genius really shines through, you know? He helped develop this game-changing algorithm called backpropagation.
Backpropagation. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. That sounds like a mouthful.
It's a bit of a tongue twister, I know.
Can you, like, break that down for us? What does that even mean?
So imagine you're trying to teach someone brain surgery, right? But you can't use a textbook, no instructions, no diagrams, nothing.
Okay, that's terrifying, but go on.
That's kind of what it was like before backpropagation. This algorithm basically gave neural networks a way to learn from data, to make mistakes, and then adjust themselves to improve, get better over time.
So it's like giving a brain a training manual.
Exactly, a personalized training manual for a brain.
Wow, so he essentially gave AI the tools to learn and to evolve.
Precisely.
Which is huge. No wonder they call him the godfather. Like, he wasn't just, tinkering around. He was building the foundation for this whole new era of technology.
Absolutely. He was laying the groundwork.
Yeah.
But he also knew that to really push the boundaries of AI, he couldn't do it alone. He needed a team, a community of brilliant minds, all working towards the same goal.
Which makes sense. I mean, it's bigger than one person, right?
Absolutely.
So that's where his career as a professor comes in.
Exactly. First at Carnegie Mellon, then the University of Toronto. And he wasn't just teaching, he was building these research powerhouses.
Yeah.
Handpicking the brightest minds in AI, creating a space where they could collaborate, challenge each other, and really push the limits of what was possible with neural networks.
So it wasn't enough to just do the research himself. He wanted to build like a movement.
Exactly. He wanted to create a global network of experts all working together.
And that's where CIFAR comes in.
Exactly. The Canadian Institute for Advanced Research,
Okay.
founded by Hinton back in 2004. It became this global hub for AI research focused on tackling the really big questions, like replicating the power of the human brain.
So it's like the Justice League of AI, like all the best minds coming together.
Exactly.
Okay.
To tackle the biggest, most challenging problems.
I like it. Okay.
And speaking of challenges, there's this pivotal moment in 2012 that really put deep learning on the map. Ever heard of the ImageNet challenge?
ImageNet? No, tell me more.
So picture this. It's a huge competition where AI systems go head-to-head, and they're trying to recognize and categorize images.
Okay.
Now, no one was really expecting any major breakthroughs, but then, bam! Hinton's team enters the arena with something called AlexNet.
AlexNet, what's that?
It was this deep convolutional neural network, and let me tell you, it absolutely crushed the competition.
Crushed it.
Crushed it. We're not talking about, like, a narrow victory here. This was a complete and utter blowout.
Wow. Okay, so this was a big deal.
Huge. Hinton had been saying for years that neural networks were the future, and AlexNet just provided undeniable proof.
It's like mic drop moment.
Exactly. It was a total mic drop moment.
So this is the moment deep learning goes from this like niche area of research to the hottest ticket in town.
Yeah. Overnight, practically. Investors were suddenly throwing money at anything related to deep learning. Research just exploded. Everyone wanted a piece of the action.
Okay, so everyone wants a piece of Hinton now.
Exactly.
But then, this is where things get interesting, right? Because he makes a move that has everybody kind of scratching their heads.
Yeah.
He's achieved like rock star status in the AI world at this point, right?
Oh, yeah. He's a rock.
He could write his own ticket anywhere.
Anywhere.
And he decides to join Google.
Google.
Okay, so now that might seem like an obvious choice now in hindsight, right? But this was 2013.
Right.
Google wasn't the AI powerhouse that it is today.
Not even close.
So by bringing Hinton on board, they were basically making a statement. We are serious about this.
We're serious about AI.
This is the future. We want to be a part of it.
We're all in.
And let's be real. They had the resources, the data, like anything an AI researcher could ever dream of.
Oh, yeah. It was a dream scenario.
It was a match made in heaven, right?
It really was.
But here's the thing that gets me. Hinton didn't just go to Google and like rest on his laurels.
No, not at all.
He could have just chilled, enjoyed the ride, but he didn't. He kept pushing.
Kept innovating.
Even when he was already like light years ahead of everybody else.
That's what's so fascinating about him. He could have easily retired, taken it easy, but his curiosity, that drive to understand the human mind, it just kept him going.
It's like he was obsessed.
In a way, he
Yeah.
wasn't just building the future of Google, he was building the future of AI. And part of that filter involves something called capsule networks.
Capsule networks. Okay, now we're talking.
Sure.
That sounds like something straight out of like, science fiction movie.
Straight out of the movies.
What are capsule networks?
So think about it this way. Even the most sophisticated neural networks back then, they had trouble understanding how different parts of an image related to each other.
Okay.
They could recognize a cat, but they couldn't always understand how the cat's head, paws, and tail, how they all fit together,
So they were missing that like holistic understanding. That just kind of comes naturally to us.
Exactly. They were seeing the pieces, but not always the whole picture.
Okay.
Capsule networks, that was Hinton's attempt to address that, to build AI that could really see and understand the world more like humans do.
And did it work?
Well, that's a story for another time, because remember that bombshell I mentioned?
The bombshell, yeah.
2023, at the height of his career, Hinton decides to walk away from it all. He quits Google.
He quits.
He quits. And not for a cushy retirement or anything like that. It's because he's starting to have second thoughts about the very thing he helped create.
Wait, hold on. The godfather of AI gets cold feet.
That's what it seems like, right?
That's a little ominous, don't you think?
It definitely makes you wonder, what does he know that we don't?
Exactly, and we're going to get into all of that right after this.
Okay.
Great, so we were talking about Hinton and his surprise exit from Google.
Yeah, it's not every day that you see a tech pioneer basically say, hold on, have we gone too far?
Right, like usually they're all gung-ho about the latest and greatest tech, but this is different.
It definitely is. And, to be fair to Hinton, he wasn't the first one to, raise concerns about AI, about where it's all going. But coming from him, the godfather of AI, it just hit different,
It's like he helped create the monster, and now he's like, oh, wait a minute.
It kind of does, doesn't it?
Yeah, so let's dive into that. Like, what specifically was he worried about? Was there something, like some specific thing that made him nervous?
Well, one of his biggest concerns was the potential for misuse of AI, especially when it comes to, warfare.
Oh, okay, I see where you're going with it.
We're talking about autonomous weapons systems, basically killer robots, making life or death decisions without any human intervention.
Yeah, that's getting real. That's not just like science fiction anymore.
It's not some distant future, it's right around the corner, and I think that's what really worried him.
Yeah, it feels like every other day you're reading about some new AI breakthrough And it's like, are we keeping up with the ethics of all this?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah, and on top of that, like, it's not just the scary stuff, right? There's also the impact on jobs. Like, all those predictions about robots taking our jobs. I mean, it's almost cliche at this point.
Right, but coming from someone like Hinton who really understands what AI is capable of, it hits different.
Yeah, he's not just some talking head. He's the guy who's been in the trenches, you know?
Exactly. He's seen the potential firsthand.
And it's not just about, like, factory workers or truck drivers, right?
No, not at all.
We're talking about lawyers, accountants, even programmers, people listening to this right now.
Absolutely. Any job that involves processing information, making decisions, there's a chance AI could automate it.
So is Hinton suggesting that we, like, slam the brakes on all this?
No, not at all. He wasn't anti-AI by any means. In fact, he was still incredibly optimistic about its potential, like solving climate change, curing diseases, all that.
Okay.
But he truly believed that we need to proceed with caution, like with our eyes wide open to the risks.
Okay, so it's more about, like, responsible AI development.
Exactly. It's about building AI systems that are transparent so we can understand how they work, that are fair, that don't perpetuate existing biases.
Right, like we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. And most importantly, AI that's aligned with our values as humans, like our ethical principles.
It just makes you wonder, why aren't these ethical considerations, like, baked in from the beginning?
It's a good question. And honestly, I don't know if there's an easy answer. I think there's this tendency in the tech world, this move fast and break things mentality.
Right, like innovate first, ask questions later.
Exactly. But with AI, the stakes are so high that we can't afford to just wing it.
No, the consequences are real.
They're very real.
So it sounds like Hinton was calling for more, like, thoughtful approach, which isn't always, tech's strong suit.
No, not really.
But it's important to remember that he wasn't alone. Like, there were other people raising their voices too, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he became a leading voice for sure, but there's a whole community of AI researchers, ethicists, philosophers who have been saying this for years. Like they've been ringing the alarm bells about things like algorithmic bias.
Right, where AI systems basically just amplify the biases that already exist in society.
Exactly. Like facial recognition systems that are better at recognizing white faces than black faces, or hiring algorithms that discriminate against women. It's like we're baking our own prejudices into the code.
Yeah, that's scary.
It really is. And that's why it's so important to have diverse voices involved in AI development from the ground up.
Right, like we need people from all different backgrounds, all different perspectives to make sure that these systems are fair and just,
Absolutely. Otherwise, we risk creating a future where the same inequalities are just like hard-coded into the very fabric of our technology.
So Hinton leaving Google, it was definitely a wake-up call, but it was also kind of a turning point, right?
Absolutely.
Like it really forced everyone to kind of confront these ethical questions head on.
It did. And I think in a way, Hinton's decision to speak out, it was like his final and perhaps his most important contribution to the field.
It's like he went from being the godfather of AI to something like its conscience.
Exactly. Reminding us that just because we can build something doesn't mean we should, and that even the most brilliant minds need to be mindful of the ethical implications of their work.
So it's not just about the technology itself.
It's about the choices we make, the paths we choose, and ultimately, the kind of future we want to create.
And that's a powerful message, but I think to really understand it, we need to step back and look at Hinton's whole journey.
Absolutely, because his story is about so much more than just algorithms and breakthroughs.
It's about human curiosity, perseverance, and ultimately taking responsibility for what we create.
Exactly.
We've covered a lot of ground today, that's for sure.
We have, from Boolean algebra to backpropagation, from university labs to Silicon Valley.
It's been quite the deep dive into the mind of Geoffrey Hinton.
What strikes me is that it's not just about artificial intelligence, It's about human curiosity.
Yeah.
That drive to uncover knowledge, even when everyone thinks you're chasing some impossible dream.
He was like a lone voice for so long,
Yeah.
right? Just completely convinced that neural networks were going to be huge.
He had this unwavering belief in it, even when it was considered like a fringe idea.
And then, bam, AlexNet comes out of nowhere and proves him right.
Right. It's like all those years of work, all that dedication, it just like explodes onto the world stage.
And then the impact, I mean, think about it. Facial recognition, language translation apps.
The personalized recommendations you get on like every website.
All of that touched by Hinton's work in some way.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
Mind-blowing. And the thing is, he didn't stop there. He could have just, like, cashed in, enjoyed the fame.
Retired on a beach somewhere.
Exactly. But he didn't. He kept going, kept exploring, even when he was already, like, miles ahead of everyone else.
That's what makes his story so inspiring. He never stopped learning, never stopped questioning.
And sometimes it's those questions, the ones that make us a little uncomfortable, that lead to the biggest breakthroughs, right?
Exactly. The ones that challenge our assumptions, make us rethink everything.
Like realizing that maybe, just maybe, we've built something so powerful that we need to be really, really careful with it.
That we can't just chase after the next big thing without considering the consequences.
Exactly. And I think that's Hinton's real legacy. That understanding that with great power comes great responsibility.
It's a lesson that goes way beyond just AI. It's something we all need to remember.
As we're navigating this, like, increasingly complex, tech-driven world.
Absolutely, it's a lesson for all of us.
So to everyone listening, next time you use your smartphone, your favorite app, any of it,
Take a moment to think about Geoffrey Hinton.
because his story reminds us that the future isn't set in stone. It's being written right now by all of us.
And we have a responsibility to make sure it's a future we can all be proud of.
That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening to Mythos AI. Stay tuned for more concise insights. And remember to hit the like button and subscribe for future episodes.